crimson, grime, sweat. His body was littered with injuries. His armor nothing more but a ripped mass. The rattling, wet sound of his breathing, nothing more than a last, desperate attempt to fight the unavoidable. It was obvious. Senju Butsuma was breathing his last. He would not survive through the night. And yet, here he was, standing upright in a field of flowing crimson, drenched by the remains of a Cadmean victory. Hashirama winced when his father drove his stained sword into the ground, the sharp edge piercing their splintered bone. Despite his wavering strength, Butsuma did not lean on it. "Remember, boys." His voice sounded as uneven as his breathing, and yet never lost its characteristic commanding quality. A shinobi can never falter. "Hashirama, come to me." Hashirama exchanged a short, nervous look with his brother. Tobirama nodded at him. "Yes, father," he answered, doing his best to ignore the wet, squelching sounds his steps produced, and stopped in front of his father. "Kneel," the man demanded sharply. Hashirama hesitated only a second before obeying, and suppressed a flinch when something sticky seeped through his torn clothes. Butsuma stood in front of him, tall and domineering, like he had been for the entirety of his life, holding himself upright by sheer force of will alone. Then he began to speak. "I am Senju Butsuma, head of the Senju clan. I'm standing in front of you, Senju Hashirama, on this memorable day. I have watched, I have judged, and I have deemed you worthy. I entrust to you, my chosen heir, the sigil of the Senju, the power of our clan." Hashirama swallowed. "We are protectors," his father continued, and his voice reverberated across the clearing. "We guard, we defend, and we shelter what is ours. We are huntsmen. We chase, we confront, and we destroy what threatens us. Will you swear to protect your kinsmen, to destroy your enemies, and to never show mercy to those who oppose you?" Hashirama swallowed again. His mouth was dry. He did not agree with his father's words at all. But he had no choice but to concur. If he refused, his father would cut him down right there, in some twisted way of showing mercy to his dishonored son. And then Tobirama would have to deal with this. He steeled himself. "I swear," he answered, and somehow it felt like he had just betrayed himself. "Then rise, Senju Hashirama, and receive what is yours." Hashirama stood and extended his hands, trying his best to ignore the sticky, wet liquid soaking his trousers. His father's hand brushed against his, and for a moment Hashirama could feel the tension in his father's fingers. It was obvious that the man was using all of his willpower to keep himself from trembling. Hashirama both pitied and admired him. Even in his last moments, his father refused to show weakness, choosing to keep a strong front instead. For the first time he wondered if his father was not lonely. May it prosper under your rule. Something heavy was placed into his palms. It was a jade sigil, their clan's symbol, the sign of their power, and the weight of Hashirama's responsibility. Hashirama longed for his brother's support as the truth hit him, but he knew he had to get through this alone. His father would not allow him to falter during such an important moment. He kept his gaze locked on the sigil, comforting himself with the fact that he could feel Tobirama's eyes on him. Then, the broad figure of Senju Butsuma crumbled, and he fell to his knees, his right hand closing across the hilt of his sword. "Father! Senju-sama!" Hashirama and Tobirama stormed forward, followed by the rest of the remaining Senju. Butsuma raised his hand, and the crowd stopped at a respectful distance. "Hashirama, Tobirama." His sons stepped closer. Hashirama could not see his father's expression in the flickering torchlights, but he could have sworn that his face had softened. "I am proud of you, my sons. You have grown into capable shinobi." Butsuma's hand rested on his head, and Hashirama pretended not to feel the tiny tremors running through his father's palm. Suddenly the man coughed, took a last, rattling breath, and slumped forward. Under the bright gaze of the moon, Zenji Butsuma looked like a fallen warrior, going to sleep one final time, forever swearing his allegiance to the eternal night. Hashirama gently took his father's limp hand from his head and placed it on top of the man's sword. The spot his father had caressed was still tingling pleasantly with lingering warmth. Hashirama had felt death touch tonight. It had felt warmer than it had during life.